Hello everyone. Today's video is another fun group chat with my teenage daughters, Sarah 16, Kendra 15, Angel 17, and today's topic was inspired by Kendra's recent Instagram share about the language around adoption and how careful it is to use the proper terms because it can be a little bit offensive. So today's topic is sort of the first installment in hopefully a series talking about adoption, and what we're going to try to focus on today is the language. So in case y'all don't even know it, Kendra and Angel are adopted. We adopted them when they were 6 and 8, and they're now 15 and 17, so that's been
9 years.
Almost
It's January.
Right? And so of course for us it seems like they've always been in our family, but obviously they haven't. And we even have to be careful when we talk because we don't want to somehow deny or dismiss the first part of their life or their biological relatives or their own identity and that sort of thing. But what we specifically want to talk about today was things people say. So girls, can y'all remember any specific crazy stuff people have said?
Talking about kind of how seeing their biological children as their own children and referring to the other kids who are adopted as not being someone's own child. Like, they are their own child, they're just adopted.
Right. That would be rude. But people ask that too. So one of our friends has also adopted, and she said in the grocery stores, even as like when they were younger, when the kids were younger, they would say, is he really yours? What the heck?
You should never say like real.
Right,
Yeah.
so I think when a lot of people use the word real, they mean biological, but it's kind of rude, you understand?
Yeah, we know it's a mistake that people don't know they're making,
Right,
but it'd be best to educate yourself.
that's right, that's right.
And also, it could be rude to the parents who adopted the kids because they took care of the kid and everything. They love the kid just like their own child because it is their own child.
Exactly.
And so it can be hurtful to both the parents who adopted the child and the adoptee.
And the child themselves too, to say, are they your real children? Rude.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
So both sides can be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Or
What were the
offended.
other things on that lady's video that she said?
She said don't say placed. No, she said don't say put up for adoption or
Because that does sound like a
not-
puppy.
not wanted.
That sounds like a dog.
yeah, just say like
Place for adoption.
yeah.
One thing that
Not
I've
put
seen,
up.
and y'all got to understand, this video is completely generalities. We're not having anybody specific in mind that we're trying to call out at all. But one thing that I have come to realize through the years is people want a lot of juicy details, and it's really not their business. You know, it's not appropriate if a family has adopted a child to ask, well, tell me about their biological parents. What color were they? Where were they from? Were they on drugs? What happened? Whatever. Yeah, that's none of your business. It's that child's story to tell one day if they choose to and how and when they decide to. So really a giant discussion of specific details isn't within what's appropriate for you to ask about. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be rude. Sometimes I fantasize about if we go into a restaurant or something, you know, we have 6 children total, and if we were out to eat, I can remember sometimes going to Cracker Barrel, the poor waitress was just like panicked trying to find a table that could accommodate all 8 of us, but just people at other tables would look, and I could see them counting the children in their mind, and I wanted so badly for them to ask, but they didn't, because I was ready to tell them if they asked if we were Catholic, we were going to say that we were passionate Protestants, because more power to Catholic people who have large families as well. We just don't happen to be Catholic. But and then another time sometimes we've been out to eat or something with some of the girls' friends or some of the other kids' friends, and we would have even more children than normal, but not our oldest Nathan because he's grown and married and moved from home. And I was so hoping somebody would say, "Are these all your children?" And I could say, "No, I have more." But they didn't always ask. But I could see them counting, like y'all had friends with us or something. So fun. So I think the point of this video was to help you know to be careful in how you word things, because it could accidentally be hurtful to both the biological parents who placed their children for adoption or the adoptive parents if they felt dismissed because they weren't real. Everyone's real here, guys. And or siblings, is that your real sister? Heck yeah, they're all sisters, very close. So be careful with the word real if what you mean is biological or adopted, like that.
Be more specific.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just don't use the word real or own child, own parent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that would be so rude if somebody said, "These are my real children. Those are my other children." How could you not? You're not imaginary or like fantasy children. You're real children. Everybody's a real child. Good gracious. Okay, we had one more topic we were going to cover today as well, and that's just a quick few things that we think may have helped Kendra and Angel's adoption go smoother. For one thing, they're together. So if you have the option to have children not be separated from one another, it can help, I think, buffer their experience, because when you came to our house brand new, you already knew each other. That's got to help, don't you think?
If they do have siblings and they're not an only child, and it depends on every situation,
Right.
but if you can't adopt the other siblings, then even just visiting helps a lot.
That's
And
true.
it depends on the situation. You may not want them to visit, but at least think about that, because it does help a lot.
And I remember early on, we read this in a book. Focus on the Family has a lot of great resources for adoptive parents. But it was saying how it's very easy for us to say, "Oh, they look just like yours. They look just like your family." But be careful, because you don't want to deny their biological family and their self-identity. So it's really important that you acknowledge they had a life before they came into your family. Even though they're every bit a part of your family now, they did have a previous existence, and you don't want to just dismiss that by saying, "Oh yeah, they look just like all of our children." So be aware of that, be delicate with that. Kendra mentioned this before, and that is that if the children experienced, well, I'd say in any child who's being adopted, that elevates their adverse childhood event score, or their ACEs score, something we should probably do a whole entire video about, because a high ACEs score predicts more mental health issues and physical health issues in adulthood. So it's really important to be aware of that, and many children who come into adoption will need to have some counseling from a counselor with a trauma education, somebody who's been trained in trauma-based counseling. And certainly it will be important to realize, as the adoptive parent, you can't use the same disciplinary techniques you may have used on your biological children. For example, you would never want to use any physical form like spanking or something. If they've been previously abused or traumatized, that could make it worse and just would absolutely not be appropriate. So that's important to know as well. Yes,
Yeah.
and Sarah, who was pre-existing in the home, biological child, she's right in between Angel and Kendra age-wise. So they're all very close, so that helps.
Yeah, you definitely want them to make them feel like they are a part of your family, because they are, but you can't dismiss the fact that they did have and do have like another family.
So I think it's important to embrace that as well, because I know there are some stories of adoptive parents who are sort of jealous, will that be the right word, or just, I don't know their place, and can be very resentful of the biological family, and that may not serve the best interest of the adopted children.
Saying something like, "Oh, they're so lucky to have you," and they are. To get adopted is really, like, it's wonderful, and you're so happy and everything, but there was a loss on one side. Like, you
absolutely.
can't forget that.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's true. I think, and we learned about that a lot in our foster care classes that are required before you can foster through the Department of Social Services. This is a huge loss of the child's life. This isn't a happy celebratory moment. I've lost contact with my biological family. Something so traumatic happened in my family, I couldn't stay there. That's not okay. That's not cool on any level, in any way. Yes, it can have a happy ending, but there's going to be some painful transition time. And this is not all rainbows and sunshine and flowers and happy butterflies and unicorns, and it's just, there's some nitty-gritty hardness to that. There's a loss, which is why they have high ACEs scores. Any child that's been in foster care or adopted, especially the more trauma they've seen and experienced, and the more foster care families they've been with, particularly if they weren't the best, there's a lot of pain to overcome in those situations. Anything you want to contribute, Sarah, from the biological child's perspective?
I'd say try not to separate and do different things with biological kids and adopted kids. Like if you have some of them in your household, you can do everything with all of them together, because that just causes division and makes them think that they're different somehow. And they are, but they shouldn't be treated differently. They're all
Right.
your children.
Right.
In certain cases, it should be such as like punishment, but like mainly, yeah, treat them and do activities like the same because they are. And
Probably in some families. I do know some families who have much older children and then adopt much younger children. Like they would probably be doing completely different things, but that would just be age based. Yeah. We've just been very blessed that Angela and Kendra are doing so very well. Not all families who've adopted children have had this an amazing, wonderful, precious addition to their family. Like not this good of an outcome because maybe the children had more trauma or were not as good of a match, or we've just prayed so much over them and God's blessed us through that. And it doesn't mean it's the family's fault if they had a bad outcome. There may have been some sort of genetic predisposition or something like that that you just can't help. These things happen, and there are no guarantees in biological children or adopted children if they're going to be sweet and wonderful favorite children, or if they're going to be defiant teens with a lot more challenges. But we've been very blessed. So you guys, there are still plenty of teenagers in the foster care system who would love to have a permanent family and would love to be adopted. So if you should feel so called, do know that, though, as we were just talking about traumatic past, they may have had more negative experiences in the foster care system. They may have more mental health issues already declaring themselves and need more help with counseling. That does not at all mean you shouldn't adopt them. It just means you should go into it understanding that there may be more hard times with that, but very rewarding and very valuable.
And also, even if you don't adopt them, and even if they're just in your home for a few months or even weeks, that you're making an impact. Because they're going to remember how patient and caring.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Like and
Bye.
subscribe.
Bye.